I wired $85,000 to a woman I'd known for 8 months. She promised me partnership, a future, a family business we'd build together. 3 weeks later, the store was empty. The doors were locked, and Angelica stopped answering my calls. I'm Dennis. I'm 59 years old, and I'm about to tell you how I lost everything I saved in less than a month. It started with a photograph. I wasn't even looking for anything. I'd been alone for 6 years since my wife left me for a personal trainer half my age. I spent those years working construction jobs around Phoenix, coming home to an empty house that echoed every time I closed the door. I worked 12-hour days because going home meant sitting in silence with a TV I didn't watch and a phone that never rang. One night in February, I was scrolling through a Philippines travel forum. I don't even remember why. Maybe I was just tired of looking at the same four walls. That's when I saw her. A friend from work had posted photos from his Cebu trip. There she was in one of them, standing in front of a small neighborhood store, wearing a simple yellow dress. She was smiling, not the fake smile people put on for cameras, a real one. Something about her eyes made me stop scrolling. I stared at that photo for probably 10 minutes. Then I did something I'd never done before. I messaged my friend. "Hey man, who's the girl in the yellow dress?" He responded the next morning. "That's Angelica. She helped us find a good restaurant. Want me to connect you two?" I told him sure. Why not? 2 days later, I got a Facebook message request. "Hello, Dennis. My friend said you're from America. I've never talked to someone from so far away before." I read that message 5 times before I responded. There was something innocent about it, genuine. I wrote back, "Hi, Angelica. Yeah, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. How are you?" She replied almost immediately, "I'm good, Thank you for asking. What is Phoenix like? I've only seen it in movies." We messaged back and forth for an hour that first night. She asked about my work, about the desert, about what Americans eat for breakfast. I asked about Cebu, about her family, about what she did for fun. She told me she helped her mother run a small store in their neighborhood, that her father had passed away 2 years ago from a stroke, that she was the eldest of 4 siblings. I remember sitting on my couch at midnight, still typing messages to her, and thinking this was the most I'd talked to anyone in months. When I finally went to bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt interested. In something. In someone. The messages turned into voice calls within a week, then video calls. I'd finish work, shower, grab a beer, and call her. Sometimes we'd talk for 3 hours. She'd tell me about her day at the store, about her younger brothers and sister, about how hard it was since her father died. I told her about my divorce, about how my ex-wife said I was boring, about how I spent most of my time alone now. "You're not boring, Dennis," she said one night during a video call. Her camera was shaky, probably bad internet, but I could see her face clearly enough. "You're just honest." That's rare. I didn't know what to say to that. No one had said anything like that to me in years. She asked me about Phoenix again, about my house, about what I did on weekends. I told her the truth. I worked. I went to the grocery store. I came home. Sometimes I'd go to a bar and watch a game by myself. "That sounds lonely," she said quietly. "It is," I admitted. I'd never said that out loud before. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she smiled softly. "You seem like a good man, Dennis. I don't understand why you're alone." That hit me harder than I expected. I felt my chest tighten. I took a drink of my beer to buy myself time. "I guess I just haven't met the right person," I said. She looked directly into the camera. "Maybe you will." We talked every day after that. She'd message me good morning before I even woke up. She'd send me photos of the store, of her family, of the street she lived on. I started looking forward to those messages more than anything else in my day. One night, about 6 weeks after we started talking, she called me crying. I answered immediately. "Angelica? What's wrong?" She was trying to catch her breath. "I'm sorry, Dennis. I'm sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me." "What happened?" She wiped her eyes. I could see her sitting on the edge of a bed in a small room. "It's just hard today. My father's birthday was yesterday. I miss him so much. I didn't know what to say. I'm not good with emotional stuff. But I tried. I'm sorry, Angelica. I can't imagine how hard that is. She nodded, still crying. He was the one who kept everything together. Now it's just me and my mother trying to keep the store running. And I don't know if we can. You're doing your best, I said. That's all you can do. She looked at me through the screen. Her eyes were red. I wish I could meet someone like you here, Dennis. Someone who sees me. Not just my situation. Something shifted in me when she said that. I felt this surge of protectiveness, like I wanted to help her, like I needed to. You deserve that, I told her. You deserve someone who sees you. She smiled through her tears. Thank you, Dennis. You make me feel less alone. That night, after we hung up, I sat in my living room for an hour just thinking. I pulled up flights to Cebu on my laptop. I didn't book anything, but I looked, and I kept looking. I told Angelica I wanted to visit 2 weeks later. I didn't plan to say it. We were on a call, and she was showing me around the store on video. It was tiny, cramped shelves, flickering lights, barely any products. She was explaining how they couldn't afford to restock properly, how customers were going to the bigger stores down the street instead. I wish I could help, I said. And then, before I could stop myself, actually, maybe I can. What if I came to visit? She froze. Visit? You mean come here? To Cebu? Yeah. I mean, if that's okay with you. Her face lit up. Dennis, are you serious? I'm serious. She covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. Yes. Yes, of course that's okay. When? I checked flights right there on the call. How about next month? I can take 3 weeks off work. She started crying again. Happy crying this time. I can't believe you'd do that. I can't believe you'd come all this way. I want to meet you, I said. And I meant it. I booked the flight that night. $1,500 round trip. I didn't even think twice about it. When I landed in Cebu 6 weeks later, she was waiting for me at the airport with her younger brother, June. She looked even better in person. She was wearing jeans and a white top, her hair pulled back. When she saw me, she smiled and waved. I walked over, suddenly nervous. Hi, Dennis, she said. Her voice was softer in person. Hi, Angelica. She hugged me. It was quick, polite, but I felt it everywhere. This is my brother, June, she said, gesturing to the young guy next to her. He looked about 20. He shook my hand. Nice to meet you, sir. You too, June. We drove to their neighborhood in June's beat-up sedan. Angelica sat in the front, turning around every few minutes to talk to me. Are you tired? Do you want to rest first? Or do you want to see the store? I want to see the store, I said. She smiled. Okay, we'll go there first. The store was exactly like she'd shown me on video. Small, old, struggling. Her mother, Lita, was inside, sweeping the floor. She was maybe in her mid-50s, thin, with kind eyes. Mama, this is Dennis, Angelica said. Lita smiled and shook my hand. Thank you for coming, sir. Angelica talks about you every day. I felt my face get warm. It's good to meet you, ma'am. We spent the first week just exploring Cebu. Angelica took me to the beaches, to local restaurants, to her favorite spots in the city. We talked constantly. She asked me about my life back in Phoenix, about my ex-wife, about what I wanted for my future. I told her things I'd never told anyone. She listened like every word mattered. One night, we were sitting by the water after dinner. It was quiet, except for the waves. Do you ever think about starting over? She asked. What do you mean? I mean leaving everything behind, starting fresh somewhere new, with someone new. I looked at her. She was staring at the ocean. Sometimes, I said. Do you? She nodded. All the time. I feel stuck here, Dennis, like I'm just surviving, not living. I wanted to tell her she didn't have to feel that way, that I could help, but I didn't say it. Not yet. On my last night before flying back to Phoenix, we were sitting outside her house. It was late. June and Lita had gone to bed. Angelica reached over and took my hand. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You made me feel like someone cares." I squeezed her hand. "I do care, Angelica." She looked at me with those same eyes from the photograph. "I know." I flew home the next day, but my heart stayed in Cebu. 2 months passed. We talked every single day. I sent her money once, $300, because she mentioned they were short on rent. She cried when I told her, "Dennis, you don't have to do this." "I want to," I said, and I did. Helping her felt good. It felt like I mattered. Then one night in June, she called me and she was upset, really upset. "Angelica, what's wrong?" She was crying so hard she could barely speak. "We're going to lose the store." My stomach dropped. "What? What happened?" "The landlord raised the rent. We're 2 months behind, and the suppliers won't deliver anymore because we owe them money. My mother is trying to figure out what to do, but there's no way we can pay it all." "How much do you owe?" "Too much, Dennis, too much." "Angelica, tell me. How much?" She took a shaky breath. "If we had $15,000, we could pay the rent, restock, and keep going for a few more months. But we don't have it. We'll never have it." I sat there in my living room, phone pressed to my ear, and I made a decision. What if I helped? She stopped crying. "What? What if I sent you the money?" "Dennis, no. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. That's too much money. Angelica, listen to me. I have savings. I've been working for 30 years. I can help you." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." She started crying again. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Yes. Yes, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you so much." I wired her $15,000 the next day. But then I started thinking, 15,000 would help short term, but what about long term? What if the same thing happened again in 6 months? That's when I came up with the idea. I called her a week later. "Angelica, I've been thinking." "About what?" "About the store. What if instead of just helping with the rent, we actually invested in it, renovated it, upgraded the inventory, turned it into a real business?" She was silent. "Dennis, what do you mean?" "I mean a partnership. I invest the money. You and your family run it. We split the profits. We build something together." "How much money are you talking about?" I'd already done the math. $85,000. She gasped. "Dennis, that's insane." "That's too much." "It's not too much if it works. We could turn that store into something profitable. You wouldn't have to struggle anymore." "But what if it doesn't work? What if we lose your money?" "We won't. I trust you, Angelica." She didn't respond right away. Then she said quietly, "Why would you do this for me?" "Because I care about you. Because I want to build something with you. A future." She started crying. "Dennis, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll let me help." "Okay. Okay. Yes. Let's do it." She sent me photos over the next week. Renovation plans, supplier quotes, a handwritten budget her mother helped her put together. Everything looked legitimate. Professional. I wired the money in 3 installments over 2 weeks. $85,000. Every cent I'd saved over 15 years of construction work. When the last transfer went through, she called me immediately. "Dennis, I can't believe you did this. You changed our lives. We're partners now," I said. "We're building this together. I won't let you down. I promise." I believed her. I flew back to Cebu 3 weeks later for the grand reopening. The store looked incredible. Fresh paint, new shelves, fully stocked inventory. They'd even put up a new sign. Angelica was waiting for me outside when I arrived. She hugged me tight. Come see what we did." Inside, Lita was arranging products on the shelves. She saw me and started crying. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You saved us." June was there too, restocking the cooler. He shook my hand. "This is amazing, sir. We never thought we'd see the store like this." Angelica took my hand and led me through every section. "Look, Dennis, we have everything now. Fresh produce, canned goods, drinks, snacks. People are already coming in. We had 20 customers this morning alone. I felt proud. I felt needed. I felt like I'd done something that mattered." That night, they threw a small celebration. Lita cooked a big meal. Some neighbors came by. Everyone was smiling, laughing, thanking me. Angelica sat next to me the whole time. At one point, she leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. "You changed our lives," she whispered. "We're going to make you proud." I stayed for 2 weeks. The store was busy the first few days. Then it slowed down. By the end of the first week, I noticed there weren't as many customers as I'd expected. "Is this normal?" I asked Angelica one afternoon. We were sitting outside the store. "Is what normal?" "The foot traffic. It seems slow." She shrugged. "It takes time to build a customer base, Dennis. People need to know we're here." That made sense. I didn't push it. One afternoon, I saw a man standing outside the store talking to Angelica and Cebuano. I couldn't understand what they were saying, but he seemed familiar with her. When she came back inside, I asked, "Who was that?" "Oh, that's Carlo. He's one of our suppliers. He seems friendly." She smiled. "He's nice. He gave us a good deal on the drinks." I didn't think much of it. I flew back to Phoenix 2 days later. Angelica cried at the airport. "I'm going to miss you, Dennis. I'll miss you too. But we'll talk every day." Promise? Promise. I kept that promise. For about 2 weeks. The calls started getting shorter. At first, I didn't notice. Angelica said she was busy with the store. I understood. Running a business is hard work. But then she started missing calls. I'd try her in the morning. No answer. I'd try at night. She'd pick up but sound distracted. "Hey, is everything okay?" I asked one evening. "Yeah, Dennis. I'm just tired. Long day. How's the store doing?" "It's fine. We're managing." "Can you send me an update? Sales numbers, expenses, that kind of thing?" "I will. I promise. I just need to organize everything first." "Okay. No rush." But she never sent them. I asked again a week later. Same response. "I'll send them soon, Dennis. I'm just really busy." The unease started creeping in. I told myself I was being paranoid. She was busy. She was stressed. That's all. But then one night, I called her and I heard a man's voice in the background. "Who's that?" I asked. She hesitated. "That's June. He's helping me close up." It didn't sound like June, but I didn't push it. 2 days later, I tried calling her 3 times. She didn't answer. When she finally called me back 6 hours later, she sounded annoyed. "Dennis, I'm sorry. I was busy. I just wanted to check in. I haven't heard from you much." "I know. I'm sorry. Things are just hectic right now. Is everything okay with the store?" "Yes, everything's fine." But she didn't sound fine. She sounded distant, cold. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation we'd had over the past month. The vague answers, the missed calls, the man's voice in the background. I pulled up my laptop and checked flights to Cebu. I booked one for 3 days later. I didn't tell Angelica I was coming. I landed in Cebu on a Tuesday morning. I didn't text anyone. I took a taxi straight to the store. When we pulled up, my stomach dropped. The lights were off. The new sign was still there, but the windows were dark. I got out of the taxi and walked up to the door. It was locked. I pressed my face against the glass and looked inside. The shelves were nearly empty. A few products scattered here and there, but nothing like it had been 3 weeks ago. I stood there for 5 minutes, just staring. A woman walked by, carrying groceries. I stopped her. "Excuse me, do you know what happened to this store?" She looked at it, then at me. "They closed last week. The girl and her boyfriend packed everything up and left." My chest tightened. "Boyfriend?" She nodded. "Yeah, the guy with the truck. They loaded everything and drove off. I pulled out my phone and called Angelica. It rang. No answer. I called Lita. No answer. I called June. No answer. I stood outside that store for another 20 minutes, trying to process what I was seeing. Then I got back in the taxi. "Take me to this address," I said, showing the driver Angelica's house. We drove there in silence. When we arrived, the house was dark. No one was home. I knocked on the door anyway. No answer. I sat on the steps outside and waited. 1 hour, 2 hours. Finally, June pulled up on a motorcycle. He saw me and froze. "Sir, I didn't know you were coming." I stood up. "Where's Angelica?" He looked uncomfortable. "She's not here, sir." "Where is she?" He hesitated. "She's with Carlo." I felt the ground shift under me. "Carlo? The supplier?" He nodded. "Yes, sir." "How long have they been together?" He wouldn't look at me. "A while, sir. I thought you knew." I felt my hands shaking. I didn't know. "What about the store?" "What happened to the store?" June shrugged. "I don't know, sir. My sister handles all of that. I just help when she asks." "Where did they go?" "I don't know. They didn't tell me." I stood there, staring at him. He looked like he wanted to disappear. "June, did you know what was happening?" He finally looked at me. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't want to get involved. It's my sister's life." I didn't know what to say. I walked back to the taxi and told the driver to take me to my hotel. I sat in my room for 3 hours, staring at my phone. Finally, I sent Angelica one message. "Where are you?" I watched the screen. 3 dots appeared. She was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they appeared again. Then the message came through. She read it. She didn't reply. I spent 3 days in Cebu trying to reach her. I called. I texted. I even went back to the store twice, hoping to find someone who knew something. Nothing. On the 4th day, I got a text. "I'm sorry, Dennis. I never meant to hurt you, but I needed that money. My family needed it. Carlo and I are leaving Cebu. Please don't look for me." I read it 5 times. Then I read it again. No apology for lying. No explanation about the store. No mention of the $85,000. Just a clean exit. I tried calling her. The call wouldn't go through. She'd blocked my number. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, holding my phone, and I felt numb, not angry, not sad, just empty. I contacted a local lawyer the next day. I brought all my paperwork, the wire transfers, the messages, the photos of the store. He looked through everything and then looked at me. "Sir, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's very little we can do. You sent the money as a gift. There was no formal contract, no legal partnership agreement. Without those, it's almost impossible to recover the funds. But I have proof. I have everything." "Proof of what? That you sent her money?" "Yes, but not proof that she was legally obligated to return it or use it in a specific way. I'm sorry, sir. This happens more often than you'd think." I walked out of that office feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I went back to my hotel, packed my bag, and booked a flight home. Before I left, I pulled up the photos on my phone. The reopening, Angelica smiling, Lita crying with gratitude, June shaking my hand. I stared at those photos for a long time. Then I deleted them. All of them. I boarded the plane the next morning. I didn't look back. The flight home was the longest 14 hours of my life. I didn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the seat in front of me, replaying everything. The photo, the first message, the video calls, the trip to Cebu, the tears, the promises, the $85,000. When I landed in Phoenix, I drove straight home. I walked into my empty house, and it felt even emptier than before. I dropped my bag in the hallway and sat on the couch. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't get a beer. I just sat there for hours. Eventually, I pulled up my bank account on my phone. My savings account balance stared back at me. $12,000. That's all I had left. 15 years of construction work, 12-hour days in the Arizona heat, every weekend overtime shift, every dollar I saved. Gone. I thought about Angelica, about the way she cried when I offered to help, about the way she looked at me during the grand reopening, about the way she kissed my cheek and said, "You changed our lives." I wondered how much of it was real. I wondered if any of it was real. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to feel rage. But mostly, I just hated myself for being so stupid, so desperate, so willing to believe that someone like her could want someone like me. I went to work the next day. My crew asked how my trip was. It was good, I said. Didn't work out the way I hoped, but it was good. They didn't ask any more questions. I didn't volunteer any more information. At night, I'd lie in bed and replay the moment June said, "They've been together for a while, sir. I thought you knew." I'd think about Carlo, about how he was probably there from the beginning, about how Angelica probably laughed at me when I wired that first 15,000, about how easy it must have been. I couldn't sleep. I'd stare at the ceiling until 3 or 4 in the morning, then drag myself out of bed and go to work exhausted. This went on for weeks. I lost weight. I stopped answering calls from friends. I just worked, came home, and sat in silence. One night, about 6 weeks after I got back, I broke down. I was sitting on my couch, drinking my 4th beer, and I just started crying. Not quiet tears, full sobs, the kind that shake your whole body. I cried for an hour, maybe longer. When I finally stopped, I felt hollowed out, but also lighter, like something had finally broken loose. 6 months passed. I stopped thinking about Angelica every day, then every week. I didn't try to contact her again. I didn't search for Carlo. I didn't check her Facebook profile. I just let it go. I started seeing a therapist in October. I didn't tell her the whole story at first, just bits and pieces. She asked me why I'd sent the money. I told her I wanted to help. She asked me what I was really looking for. I didn't have an answer. We talked about it for weeks. Then one session, she asked me again, "Dennis, what were you really looking for when you sent Angelica that money?" I sat there thinking. Then it hit me. I wanted to matter. She nodded. To her? To anyone. She let that sit for a minute. "Do you think you matter now?" "I don't know. Do you want to?" I nodded. "Yeah, I do." "Then we'll work on that." And we did. Slowly. I started picking up hobbies again. I built a workbench in my garage and started doing woodworking. Small stuff at first. Cutting boards. Picture frames. It felt good to make something with my hands that wasn't for someone else. I reconnected with an old friend from high school. We started grabbing lunch once a week. He didn't know about Angelica. He just knew I'd been through something. He didn't push. I appreciated that. I stopped checking my bank account every day. I started saving again. Small amounts. $50 here, $100 there. It felt impossible at first. But slowly, the numbers started climbing. I thought about Angelica sometimes. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I wondered where she was, if she ever thought about me, if she felt guilty. But mostly, I just felt tired. Not angry, not heartbroken, just tired. One evening in March, almost a year after everything happened, I was sitting on my porch with a beer. The sun was setting. The sky was orange and pink. Beautiful. I pulled out my phone and opened my notes app. I typed out a message, not to Angelica, just to myself. I wanted to believe someone could see me the way I saw her. I was wrong, but that doesn't mean I was wrong to want it. I read it a few times. Then I saved it and closed my phone. I finished my beer and watched the sunset. It was quiet, peaceful, and for the first time in a year, that was okay. I don't have my money back. I probably never will. I don't have closure from Angelica. I probably never will, but I have something else now. I have the understanding that I was looking for love in a place that couldn't give it to me, that I wanted to be needed so badly I ignored every red flag, that I saw what I wanted to see because seeing the truth meant admitting I was alone, and I was alone. I am alone. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being alone doesn't mean I don't matter. Maybe it just means I haven't found the right place to matter yet. Or maybe it means I need to matter to myself first. I'm working on that. It's slow. Some days are harder than others. But I'm working on it. I'm 59 years old. I lost $85,000 to a woman I barely knew. I have $12,000 to my name. I work construction in Phoenix. I live alone. But I'm still here. And maybe that's enough. For now, that's enough.